Thanks for tuning into the Loser Kid Pinball Podcast. My name is Josh Roop. With me, my co-captain,
Scott Larson.
One person has said we've dropped the episode numbers. Okay, here you go. We're on episode 175.
175.
I'll keep track, I promise. 175. And today we've got an awesome guest on. But before we jump into the guest, we're going to be talking a little bit about Funhouse today, and maybe some other games that might be announced. If you're getting these games, Scott, who are you buying them from?
I'll buy them from Zach and Nicole Mini at Flipping Out Pinball. They've actually been great in so many ways. So if you want new stuff, if you want used stuff, they have great customer service. Zach is always super responsive, especially with Facebook Messenger. That's actually seems to be the best way to get a hold of him. But they post their used stuff also on Facebook all the time. So if you're looking for the new game, if you're looking for a used game, Stern is going to be coming out likely with a game here. So if you want to be on the interested list, and there's a big rumor, it's a big title again, go ahead and contact Zach and Nicole Mini at Flipping Out Pinball.
Or if you want Funhouse, definitely hit up Zach or Nicole Mini right now. You can get $500 off if you use discount code LoserKid, whether you do that at checkout or you just let Zach know through Messenger, hey, I've been listening to Loser Kids. I've been dying to get a Funhouse. Whether it be the LE or the Classic Edition, doesn't matter. Get $500 off on that. Also, if you like our shirts, silverballswag.com. These are the new ones from Vic VP. Thanks, Vic, for sending these over to us. He was nice enough to give us the PNGs to hook us up. So you can now buy these shirts through Silverball Swag, as long as Neil has put it on the website. He's out of the office till Wednesday. So, Scott, why don't you introduce our guest for us?
Okay, so this is Brian Allen with Flyland Design. So he's I've actually been familiar with Brian Allen for a long time. In fact, over my shoulder here, you're mirrored, but it's my right shoulder, but it looks like my left on the mirror. You can actually see the Medieval Madness alternative translite. I also have his alternative translite for Monster Bash, which is great, and he's been doing a lot of different art packages for especially classic games. He's been great. I even have the art blades in my Medieval Madness. So I have the Flyland Design alternative Medieval Madness. And it's been great. I really like the new take on the old projects, because sometimes the old projects you don't really like. It gives you a good option to say, hey, I like the classic, but I really like a new option too. So we'd like to welcome Brian Allen. He also did the alternative art package for the Funhouse remake. So welcome to the show, Brian, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks, Scott. I think you were probably like one of my earliest supporters going way back to Monster Bash. I mean, I remember your name from way back then, so I really appreciate it. And then just seeing you at shows constantly and stuff. So really appreciate it.
Speaking of
that
shows,
shirt. Who is the artist on your on the Loser Kid shirt? That's fantastic.
So Vic VP, he's an arcade gentleman. You can check out his YouTube here.
Vic VP.
But yeah, he's testing out some designs. We'll put it that way.
And if you look really closely at the shirt, it's actually quite fun. I thought the rule was never wear a T-shirt with your picture on it, but I am breaking that rule now, because if you look at it, it has Loser Kid in the Funhouse font, and it has Josh and I as Rudy, and we are pointing at each other. And by the way, Vic VP is an awesome guy. Just background, if you don't know, he's the guy that we talked about when they were talking. I believe it was John Wick, right, Josh? It was John Wick when they did a reveal, and Stern reached out to a few influencers and said, "Hey, we're trying to promote a product." And part of us were like, all the people who are doing the podcast were like, we have been doing this for a long time. Why didn't you reach out to us? You reached out to some of these people that we haven't heard of. Well, Vic was actually one of those, and he's the one that we talked about. It's like, well, he has a pinball machine in the background. He actually reached out to us. We have been able to interact with him, and he's a great guy, by the way. He is fun. He has a lot of arcade stuff, and so it's been really fun to get to know him. He asked us, "Hey, what's your what is your Stern Insider Connected, and also what do you enter in when you get a high score?" So he had some ideas for T-shirts, and this is one of them. We're going to show the other one, but this is awesome. It says Loser Kid in the Funhouse font, but it also has Josh and I and our caricatures on it, which is it's fun. So as Josh said, if you want to get your own version of that, it's on Silverball Swagger. It will be shortly. But
Yep.
Yeah,
one
it's
thing we
hilarious.
want to talk about, Brian, you've been
Yeah,
involved in pinball for a while, even before we got into the podcasting thing. You've been doing this for a long time. So can you give us the background on what brought you into pinball? What is your, what is your origin story in pinball? And you also do
sure.
a lot of other stuff too. So let's talk about first how you got connected to pinball.
That was actually the ill-fated Alien pinball machine with Highway Pinball. Um, I can't remember if I reached out to Andrew Highway or if he reached out to me. I think he might have reached out to me. And at that time, I was really not plugged into the world of pinball at all. So I did not know at the time that Alien pinball was already kind of struggling. Um, but he hired me to do the limited edition backlash for his machine. And later, I pretty much realized that he probably just did that to kind of buy himself some time because he wanted to release some new artwork to like get some new interest to just because it later came out that there was like he was basically out of money at that point. Um, but I drew this alien queen for the pinball machine. He released the artwork, and that brought in like a flood of pinball fans to my website. And then very shortly after, like, I mean, I'm talking like 2 weeks after, I think, that's when Andrew Highway announced that they weren't going to be making any games, and he basically was out of money. Um, I luckily did get paid for that, but I know a lot of people who worked on the game didn't, which I think is terrible. Um, but when people found out that this backlash was not going to be released, I started getting messages from people saying that they want to buy it on a print. So we made a really nice, like, really thick paper, really huge prints of this thing. I signed and numbered them out of 100 or something like that. Um, and everybody was so incredibly supportive because they were disappointed that it wasn't going to be on a game. Um, I was incredibly disappointed because I thought this was this huge opportunity that just kind of went up in smoke. Um, but after that, then I just started getting messages from people saying, for example, Monster Bash, that like, hey, you should redraw some of these old backglasses because we love your artwork and we want it in our machines. And I just kept, I would do one and then I would get requests for another and I kept going. And that's when I connected with Planetary Pinball to get a Williams Bally license so that I could like officially make artwork for their games. Um, and I think now we've got like maybe 13 alternate backglasses now. I've done cabinet artwork through Planetary Pinball, the side blades you mentioned and stuff like that. Um, Started going to pinball conventions. Everyone's very supportive there. Um, and I'm rambling, but like in between that, there have been opportunities for me to work with some of the bigger companies. I can't really get into specifics, but unfortunately, like probably like 4 different times, it's either happened where I've started something and then the licensing deal blew up, or things blew up before I could even get started. So I haven't had very good luck in that area. But I do have a couple, probably like 3 different opportunities cooking this year. They kind of came all at once, actually, like in the last couple months. Um, I could talk a little bit about that, but can't get into specifics.
Well, before we start delving into that,
Sure,
there was a lot you just said that we can unpackage. First
sure.
question I have: so you did the Alien edition for Andrew Highway. Is this the one that's on your website? That's the 35th anniversary banner that you sell?
Yeah, yeah. It says like Alien 35th, and the
Yeah,
eggs are like beneath it, and the guy's like,
they're hatching. Yeah,
listen, yeah.
This is insane. I'm gonna, if you're watching the video, I've just posted it right here next to me. But this artwork is insanely cool. I didn't know this is where you started out at, was doing the alien stuff. So
Yeah,
that's
in pinball it was anyway. Before that, like I've been a freelance illustrator full time since 2012, and I've been a professional illustrator since 2004. So well, like 21 years. Whoa.
definitely. But this was your introduction to pinball, because I think when
Yeah.
I first really remember pinball, so I've been in it for quite some time. When I started listening to podcasts and started digging deeper, it was during the whole shenanigans of Andrew Highway and all that stuff, right? And the whole 2 weeks and all that. But I mean, this is some art that I've definitely seen of yours that I think we see occasionally, because it's just amazing art. It really is. Um,
Oh, thanks.
so uh, you were saying though that you've kind of had some other projects fall through the cracks. I know one that I've kind of asked you about before we got on screen was the Oktoberfest one. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about that and how that didn't pan out, I guess?
Oh, that was more like, so I had reached out to them thinking that maybe I could make alternate backglasses for American Pinball. And they were open to it, and we were going to do it. I think it might have been, I think I just got too busy with freelance projects and then with the Williams Bally alternate backglasses that I just didn't have time to get to it, and it just sort of fizzled out. Um, if there was interest in that, I'd certainly do it because I mean it would be a lot of fun. Like I'm picturing something just with tons of activity and like drunk people and it just although I do remember some direction from them that I don't think that they wanted it to be too fun and drunk and if you like if you've seen a lot of my artwork, some of my characters are I like making things a little weird and creepy and fun and stuff. So um since these alternate backglasses, these are all things I do in my spare time. Like if the theme is not something I'm really excited about, I'm probably not gonna make time to do it, because there's still a big line of ones that I want to get to that I'll probably do first.
Yeah,
Definitely. Well, I know that like you have a Mario one that's kind of like a darker take on Mario and stuff too. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
the one thing that's interesting about what you've done is now in art, it's actually licensing is a big deal. And you've actually done something that I think a lot of artists haven't done is you've actually approached the original license holder to make sure that, hey, you are making something with the permission of the license. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and why that's important to you?
Well, for one, I want if the backglass would be kind of useless if it didn't have the title of the game on it. So most of the people who are making bootlegs, they avoid putting that title on. And I think that makes the product look worse and it's probably not going to sell as well. But mainly, I wouldn't feel comfortable uh, because all of these backglasses are made by like artists that were at the top of their game and like they're all masterpieces in their own way, right? So like for me to just come in here and start copying everybody's work, I think I'd be run out of town really quick, and I would feel terrible about doing that. Um, I think most of the people that you see doing unlicensed stuff in pinball, they're usually overseas, like they're from Europe, uh, mainly Europe actually. Um, and the only reason they get away with that is they're just harder to sue. It's a lot more expensive to do that. Um, so I guess morally, I thought it's the right thing to do, but I also didn't want to get sued. So there is a little self-interest there, and also it's just like it's worth paying the royalty to not have to like look over your shoulder all the time. And now I don't have to. Now I can draw the characters as they are instead of like having to make like a kind of parody or spoof on everything, you know.
So
But
how does
sorry.
fair use work? Sorry. Now that you bring it up, drawing characters and a parody and stuff like that.
Sure. So I'm not a lawyer, but I do have a copyright attorney, so I do know a little bit about this stuff. So don't take my word for it. But it's not like there's a law written that if you make a parody of something, nobody can sue you. But there is precedent. And if I made a parody, which I do often, you'll see that I do a lot of parodies of licensed properties. And if somebody wanted to send me a cease and desist or sue me, they certainly could, and then I would still have to defend it. But my understanding is that if a reasonable person can look at that parody and say that, well, that did not come from the actual brand. That's something that is commenting on it, that is like not necessarily making fun of it, but drawing it in a different way, and there's a point to the way that it's being drawn, then like that is a parody and it is protected. Um, but again, it's not a law. You'd still have to defend it. And so I don't know. That's why when I do fan art, I don't just draw the characters as they are, which I think is a little boring and lazy. Like I'm trying to put I'm trying to put a twist on things, make them caricatures. And I'm not just talking about the pinball art. I'm talking more about my own personal parody work, um, which I day to day, I mostly do freelance work for clients. So most of the stuff that I do is not parody and it's not like IP, other people's IP. Um, but in my free time, that's normally what I kind of gravitate to because I'm a fan of all these things and I just want to like, you know, do my take on them. And they're more popular too. I mean, to be honest, they uh they do sell better when people can identify what the IP is. So I want to be honest about that, of course.
Well, there is one that I'm actually looking at, and I have thought of pulling the trigger a few times. I actually have a black rose, and
Oh yeah,
we've always
it's a new
laughed a
one.
little bit about the backlash of Black Rose because although it's consistent with the era it was done, the joke was it kind of looks like Richard Gere in drag. And so it's kind of fun to see your take on it, and I look at that and I think actually that would fit really well in my black rose. Right now, my black rose is in storage because it's actually usually over here where my Beatles is, but I try to rotate games because I only have room for 10 games down here.
Sure.
But why did you use black rose? Because that's a little bit of an outlier.
I was getting a lot of requests for that one. I
Probably
also
because of the Richard Gere.
maybe I choose them basically on like how many requests I get, and then if it's a theme that I think I can draw well and have fun doing. And here, like I love drawing pirates, and I drew a bunch of skeletons and skulls in it. So any opportunity I have to do that. That was challenging though because it has like a cutout for the score, and
Yep.
like it was actually very difficult to line up because that cutout for whatever reason is actually not centered in the backlash. It's just a little bit off. So there's a lot of technical stuff like that that comes up that is really difficult because I don't have a black rose. So I had some friends or fans like test it for me, which was extremely helpful, but challenging. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Black Rose has actually done a lot better than I thought it would because I don't see a lot of those games out there.
Yeah, well, I certainly like your backlash way better than the standard one, so I'm sure I will be placing order for that one here soon.
Well, thanks.
Is there a
Yeah,
translate you don't own from Brian Scott?
Um, okay, okay. I do have Attack from Mars, and I do love the original Attack from Mars because it is one. I have an LE, so it's a mirrored backlash, but I do like that classic '50s feel. You know, it feels like one of those B movies from the '50s, and so that one speaks to me a little more.
yeah, I love that one. I mean, I love all of these. Like, I'm not when I go into these, I'm not trying to improve on them because like I think they're already perfect. that's actually one of the challenges is that you're starting from something that somebody spent a lot of time on to already find the best way to do it. And I'm just trying to like put my spin on it, just make an alternate version of it. How would I have done it at the time? Um, but I have to stick generally to the same layout because the lights in the back glass, if
Yep.
I move things too much, then you might have like a blinking light on somebody's crotch or something,
Yeah.
that we don't want. So um, so that gets really challenging because I want to change things, but especially I did one for Bride of Pinbot, and it's like there's really no other way to draw that without her leg, you know, because it has the lights on it. Um, I tried to do different poses, but I couldn't. So that's it's a fun challenge for sure.
And I would say, I'm okay. I'm being a little dismissive of the Black Rose back glass, but it certainly is iconic, and I do like having sometimes a different take on it because most of these games are fan favorites that a lot of people own, and it's nice for me, like Medieval Madness. Yeah, I do like the original, but I like people when they come up, they can see an alternative approach and just a different vision of it. So I find that a little more fun. So it's more refreshing for a classic look.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with presenting alternatives. I think some people get offended at me trying to uh they think my by me doing this I'm like insulting the original creators, but like I couldn't respect them more. I mean, these guys are legends. And when you talk about the Black Rose, like that was literally painted. And
Yeah.
I have these tools that make it so much easier to do stuff like that. And I'm just amazed that they were able to do what they did. Um, Painting or like having to worry about silkscreen, which is a nightmare. I set up a lot of silkscreen posters for bands now, and it's just absolute. I hate it. It's so tedious. It's a nightmare trying to figure out halftones and everything. So I
So
have
how
so
do
much
you
respect for them.
I mean, we're talking about original art here. So how did you have this mentality going into Funhouse? Because Funhouse is that classic design and stuff like that. And so there's kind of like a realism to the original one. So how do you I guess pay homage to the original but yet put your flair on it?
Well, yeah. So Funhouse was excellent because they gave me a lot of freedom on that one. I should be working with them again soon. I think we've been talking about it um, for their next one. But to me, the Rudy was always so creepy. I just wanted to like crank that up a notch. And I love fun houses to me are scary. I went to this one in Ocean City all the time, and there were like these skeleton pirates in it and stuff, and it just freaked me out as a kid. Um, so I just pumped in lots of scary clowns, and it it's very difficult to design something if you worry about what trying to make something that's going to please everybody. And I knew when I was drawing it that like not everybody is going to be into freaky clowns and like the way I drew it. But in this case, if they really didn't like that, they can choose the original. So this was a great opportunity to just really pull the trigger on my own style. Um, and that's a consideration I always make too, is that I remind myself that they hired me because they like my style of work and I have this opportunity. So I need to make it look like I made it. Like I want people to look at it and say that is Brian Allen's style. I don't want to be hired for a job and then have to like copy someone else's style. Does that make sense? Because I just I don't really understand, don't really see the point. That sort of becomes a dead end if you're just a guy who could just you're hired to uh, just finish someone else's style rather than
Yeah.
have your own.
Mimic it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do try to pump my style and everything, which can also hurt because my style is definitely not good for everything. I mean, there's a lot of themes that have come out in the last few years for pinball games that I would have never been the right pick for. So having such a specific style has really helped me in my freelance work because I think I get bigger jobs because people are looking specifically for my style rather than just anybody who can do the job. But then it also makes it harder to get jobs, like specifically pinball jobs, because the theme has to be like an exact fit for my style, you know.
Definitely. That makes sense.
So Pedretti has talked about different versions of different games too that they have considered doing. Now, I'm looking at your website. You already have a Theater of Magic, you have a Tales of the Arabian Nights, you have Bram Stoker's Dracula. Is there Are there other things? How do you incorporate like an entire art package? Because you have the back glass or the translate, but then you also have to incorporate, the side panels, and you have to incorporate, the side art and the coin door. And how do you approach making a new take on an entire art package versus just focusing on the translate?
The play field so far, that's the most challenging part for me. Most time consuming part too. And I think I've done like design maybe 10 now, 10 play fields. Um, so to do an entire package, the translate is like the part I enjoy the most because that's most similar to everything else I do. A lot of t-shirt designs, a lot of poster designs. That's what I do day to day. That to me is like the book cover. That's the window into into the world. So I have the most fun with that. Um, the cabinet art I usually do next, and then we usually save the play field for last, at least on the projects I've worked on, just because I think the back glass sort of like sets the tone for the game. It says what the characters are going to look like, and then the playfield becomes way more technical about like what are these characters doing, um, where are they? So you're drawing different landscapes and stuff like that. Um, and then the side blades. I forgot about side blades. Those are a lot of fun too, but they have their own challenges because you have to draw around all the ramps and obstacles um, that block the artwork on the side blades. So I usually do a lot of work like I put paper up on the side and trace over the ramps and stuff with a pencil and then scan it in so I know like exactly what's going to be blocked. I think some of the other side blades out there, they're not really taking that into account, so they just like throw a lot of art on them, which ends up being covered when you apply them. So I try to make the side blades like complement the area that they are sharing on the playfield. Um, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the question is, do you have like, is there potential other ones that you would be interested in working on with the Funhouse? You did the entire art
Oh,
package.
sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I have like a couple things I'm juggling at the moment. Um, I might get all of them, I might get none of them. I don't know. But Pedretti has been talking to me all year about possibly doing their next one. Um, but I haven't started that yet. So I don't know what is going on with that. But there's another one of the big companies did just ask me to do an art test, and I'm just waiting for them to approve my quote. And it's a fantastic IP. Like I think I would be perfect for it because it fits my style really well. And I think there's only a couple other artists doing the test, so I don't know. I might have a good shot on that one. And then there's another company. I was gonna say big company. They're in there. Um, we've been talking about like we've had like three almost starts this same year uh, actually the last like 4 months. So that can be frustrating because I've been on like a conference call and then we have the IP set and everything, and then something changes the last minute. But it seems like I will be working with them very shortly, I think. So uh, the issue is with the way pinball works, is that these things, even if I start working today, they're not going to be released until like 2027. So that's a frustrating part of this is that the production cycle is so long, and each company is really only making like 2 games a year, maybe. So if you, it's really hard to get an opportunity uh, to do one of these things, and if you miss it, which I missed an opportunity in the spring for one of the bigger companies. I did an art test along with 3 other artists, and they ended up choosing the IP ended up choosing the artist that they always work with. I'm trying not to say too much, but which I understand that choice, but it's still like a devastating hit because it's so exciting to maybe, and I really like the IP too, and then you put a lot of work into the test, but that's just part of it, unfortunately.
Well,
But
two questions.
yeah,
You
sorry.
keep talking about art test. Can you
Yes.
explain to our listeners what an art test is? And then the second question tacked onto that too is when you're talking about, you know what, I just my brain went blank. I am so
It's
sorry.
okay.
Oh my goodness. You know what? We'll go, let's just let me really okay. Before you get going further,
Re-ask your question about the art test.
I'm re-asking. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, before we go any further, I want you to, if you would explain to us what an art test is. Now I remember my second question.
Yeah.
And then, because you were talking about a licensor decided to go with the artist that they usually use for any other product that is out there in the world. So whether it be plates or t-shirts or whatever, how it's harder for one of those artists to be integrated into pinball.
Yeah. Sure. So an art test, this is not something I experience a lot actually. Like so because most of the clients that I work with, they already know that they want to work with me because they've seen my portfolio. So they're just asking for a quote, and usually the quote, either the price is too high or they say yes, and I work with them. Um, in the cases of pinball, I've been asked to do I think 3 art tests, trying to remember. And this will be, they will tell you to complete like a very small section of like the cabinet artwork, for example. Um, they don't, they purposely don't really give you much direction. They're just trying to see like, it's like an audition, or like a line reading. You go in and you read the script and they figure out if you're the guy or not. Um, which can be frustrating, of course, because like I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've got probably over 1,000 pieces of artwork on my website, so I think it should be pretty clear what my artwork would look like. But I understand in these situations they have so much money they're putting on this, it's worth having a bit of an audition, right? Um, the thing that's so challenging about an art test is that normally when I work with a client, like you're talking directly to the art director and you're throwing ideas back and forth, you're drawing sketches to try to get uh, to develop the idea together. But with an art test, you're really like you're on your own. You're taking your best shot. It's a shot in the dark, really, you know. Um, so anyway, the art test is just basically a in the case of the one in the spring that I didn't get was a section of the cabinet inked and colored, and they ended up, like I said, they ended up going with, without saying too much, one of the artists that they worked with on all their other stuff. So did I even have a chance? I don't even know, but it was definitely nice to be invited for sure. Um, So, oh, your other question. So I think if you're an artist outside of pinball, which clearly I was not that long ago, um, there's a lot to learn about like how to set up a playfield that took me many playfields to understand. A lot of technical aspects to it. Um, so I could see if a brand is just going to take their artist who's never done anything in pinball, that can definitely be there's probably a large learning curve in store for whoever that guy is. Do I sound bitter? I think I
No,
sound
no,
bitter.
no.
Well, okay, I would argue that when you're asked to audition, in some ways it could be more of a test audition because they already probably have someone in mind that they're likely doing, but giving you the opportunity to give a take on something that they may have pre-selected anyway. I bet what it
Yeah,
does is that it allows them to see what your take would be and then consider future projects to say, well, I think Brian would be good for this one because he gave us the test for this other one. And so in many ways, I think that actually still gives you the opportunity of working with them, maybe not on that project, and it's probably a little counterintuitive, but to say, well, we auditioned him for something else, and so maybe you'd be the front runner on a future project.
yeah. And the art test that I will be doing next is for that same company. So hopefully, this one is picked. We'll see. But
Are
the
there
same thing could happen again. The same
Sure.
thing could happen again because it's like the IP also they may be the final word in this, right? But you have to please the IP and you have to please the pinball company, um, and the art director. So yeah, it's
Are
it's challenging, but I mean it's like I'm competing against the best artists out there, and there's only like I said, there's only a couple slots to fill every year. Um, and I've given quotes, I've been asked for quotes from pretty much all of the smaller companies. Um, and I'm often outbid, but I haven't got, I've, I've had a couple starts with them where I've like started a project, like I mentioned earlier, and then the IP collapses. Um, I had one really unfortunate one where like I had the whole package almost finished except for the playfield. So I had the back glass, the cabinet, side blades, and then they found out that the basically the contract they thought they had with the IP had expired or something.
Wow.
Somebody didn't double check. And so that project is lost forever. That's a shame. Um, but I
Do
don't
you
know.
talk about that project or no? Because even though it's been lost to time,
I Well, I guess if I don't say the company, it was actually supposed to be a Bride of Pinbot remake, and I ended up after that I ended up doing my own Bride of Pinbot alternate, which is totally different artwork. I didn't want to reuse the same artwork, um, but I think it would have been pretty cool. Uh, but I don't know. And there's also like lots of little kind of startup pinball projects I've been involved in where I've done the back glass or something and then the game is never built. Um, I heard it's hard to make pinball. That's what people say.
that's what they say. It
That's what
definitely
they
is
say. Yeah.
well, and how I mean, it's hard for you too. I mean, Pedretti has put out that they're going to be making more versions, and like you said, you've been in talks with them on some of this. But you know, how do you take Theater of Magic? How do you take Tales of the Arabian Nights? How do you take Creature from the Black Lagoon? And you do art packages that are still you, but they also pay homage to these titles that people just it's like it's what brought them into pinball, or it's the nostalgia fill. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you ever have people get upset that you're doing these projects?
Oh yeah. But I get people mad at me all the time. I mean, daily. Not even talking about pinball. Um, Now that I'm doing more concert artwork, like oh yeah, I wanted to say I released posters for the Offspring. If this releases tomorrow, I have like a foil poster released for the Offspring. Today I released that, and then in 2 days I'll have another poster for the Offspring. So
Nice. Love them.
if you're a fan, please check it out. Um, but yeah, so anytime I release a new poster, like luckily most people do seem to be very supportive and like it, but there's always that guy who says, this sucks, and it's hard. It hurts you. I think people think that because we're artists, it's our job to like take criticism and we must have gone to a special school to like harden us or something like that. But I mean, it hurts your feelings just like anybody else, Um, it's funny, you don't like see a lot of people. You get a haircut and then you turn around and you say, that sucks. This is slop. I mean, people online just talk so much more aggressively and cruelly. Um, but anyway, yeah, so I have gotten some negative feedback, and it usually is like, well, I don't like the attack from Mars, for example. I changed the woman to not be in a white dress. She's wearing more like a like Daisy Dukes and like a checkered redneck shirt.
Hmm.
Why did I do that? I don't know. I thought at the time I thought it was funny. I think people think I put way more thought into this stuff than I do. I'm just sort of drawing to amuse myself. But I'll get messages from people saying, my favorite is when they say, I would have bought this except for that one thing. And it's like, no, you wouldn't. The people who like my style, they buy it or they share it or they comment on it or they like it. You don't have to, I'm not saying you have to buy something for me to be supportive. Um, but the people who say those kind of things, they never would have bought it. So
What makes me
anyway,
chuckle too is like art is subjective. Like whether people want to agree with that or not, it is subjective. And like you said, people love their certain styles and stuff like that. But it makes me chuckle when people comment as if it was like a hard and fast fact. When it's like,
yeah,
no, it just is wasn't doesn't appeal to you on that level because of your tastes. And so
yeah,
it just yeah.
yeah, you hit it. I mean, that is it exactly. And people get defensive when I get defensive because there's such a huge difference in saying, I don't like that or that's not for me versus saying, hey, that's wrong or that, you know what I mean? And that's what those, like when people tell me they don't like something, I don't get offended by that because I, I'll be the first to admit my style is not for everybody. You know, the people, the artists that inspire me are like the Jimbo Phillips from the 90s, like the Thrasher magazine artists. Those guys weren't. They were counterculture at the time. So like I grew up drawing and learning from people who were not like the main accepted art style at the time. So anyway, um, so yeah, that's such a great point. It's like art is subjective. You're totally allowed to not like it, but like when people start talking about it like it's like I failed a test that I didn't know that they wrote the rules for. It's so silly. I don't know. Uh, or now I get this one's aggravating, but now I'll get people that accuse me of using AI. Um, which is funny. I'll post something from something that I drew like 10 years ago, and they'll accuse me of AI, which would have been impossible. Um, that one sucks because not only do I have to compete against, uh, I almost said artists, I have to compete against people using AI, but now I have to defend everything I draw to like prove that I drew it. Um, which is actually impossible to do. I mean, I'll show them videos of me drawing, and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, well you could have just made it in AI and then traced over it." It's like, well, unless I buy them a ticket to come like sit in my desk and watch me, like I don't know. So anyway,
I don't think you want those people around anyway, so it's not a big deal. Like,
No,
usually I
it's
found that
true.
toxic people are best to be kept at arm's distance
It's
and
true, but
more than arm's
they
distance.
find me. They won't leave me alone. But that's the curse of having to be online. Like
Yeah.
to as of this is my full-time job, so it's like I constantly have to be posting artwork to get new clients and to sell stuff. And
Mhm.
like so yeah, I guess in a way I do ask for it, right? If I didn't want that, then I would just stop putting it out there. But I don't know.
Yeah, but
The
the keyboard commandos are very loud, and they're
yeah,
usually very toxic. And I guess I try to remind myself that how someone reacts is probably more of a reflection on what's going on inside themselves than how they
sure.
actually feel about you. They could probably go up to any pinball artist and say exactly the same thing. So,
Yeah. Well,
what?
if you're trying to get me to feel sorry for them, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
Well, I
the
do have to say one thing, Brian, is like I really appreciate what you did for us as Loser Kid during flipping the script on autism that we did a couple years back. Sadly, your booth got hit, our booth got hit.
Oh yeah.
Some stuff was stolen. You had a lot more stolen from you, and luckily with us, we had people that stepped up and paid to replace the items that were stolen for us because it was all donated for autism and it was going towards a charity cause. Where you weren't so lucky, but you did draw. I'm putting it on the screen right now. The butt face sketch art for the gentleman that may have stolen your translights and ran away.
Yeah, and to summarize, think we skipped over it, but what you're talking about is a few years ago at Pinball Expo, there was a guy or multiple guys who went around and stole a bunch of stuff. They stole like $4,000 of merch from me. Um, First time in 15 years of doing conventions that I ever had anything stolen. Uh, so it was a bit of a shock, but luckily I have my business insurance policy actually covered it all. So State Farm is now like one of my best customers because they basically bought it all from me, which is
Oh wow.
pretty good. Um, so anyway, but yeah, that was terrible. It hasn't happened since. So I don't know who that was or what that was about. But I can't believe they stole from you guys. It's basically a charity. It's
Oh,
insane.
I can't. It's
Yeah,
it's fine. We appreciate everybody who stepped up. But let's talk about positive things. So I want to talk
sure.
about what are some of the themes that you are interested in, like either bands or a pinball era that you really like covering, or what are the things that really charge you to draw for pinball or in life?
Um, well, for the alternates, I'm working on Circus Voltaire right now. I hope to have that. Oh well, not hope. I will have that for Expo. Um, but as far as like dream themes, it would be anything from like 80s, 90s cartoons. So like Ren and Stimpy comes to mind. I would absolutely love to do something like that. I would love to do Gremlins. I think I could have so much fun with that one.
I think you could.
Um,
What about Pinky and the Brain? I think you could do a Pinky and the Brain.
I would love to do that. I would love to do anything cartoon related actually, because that's the style I feel most comfortable in. But I would love to do, I'd love to see more video game related pinball machines. Like Metroid would be a great one. I know that Sonic has been done. A lot of the ones I would love to do have already been done. Um, so, because I would have loved to do Ninja Turtles. Um, Bands, just thinking of bands. I was about to say Iron Maiden, which has obviously been done and done perfectly. Um, but oh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Just basically, oh, Transformers would be great. He-Man would be so much fun. Thundercats. Um, yeah, that's all I got
Okay, I'm gonna
for
do
right
a
now.
follow up
But
to Iron Maiden though, because now we know that Zombie Yeti did, Jeremy Packer did the Iron Maiden package. Now, it's a little challenging because the iconic artist for Iron Maiden is actually a guy named Derek Riggs, who worked with them
Very familiar.
during their heyday. And so in some ways, I would wonder, would that be something you would be interested in doing? Because it is challenging for people to look at a different artist taking that style, because Derek has a very distinct style, and he's the one who wrote all, or who did all the iconic Eddie faces, all the different zombie looks. And so, what challenges would you have to say, okay, I know it's not Derek's take on this, but it's my take, but I need to at least keep somewhat close to Derek?
Yeah, and I am I wrong in saying that didn't Derek and Iron Maiden have like a falling out
Yeah,
on that?
they did a little later. So some of the later versions, like the X Factor and I think Fear of the Dark may have been his last one, but I could be wrong on that. He came back and did Brave New World, but kind of for the last 20 years has been more in and out of the picture of Iron Maiden than he's been in. So they've found different ways of doing it. However, I would say, the original, the Iron Maiden album, then Killers, then you have Number of the Beast, then you have Power Slave, you have Somewhere in Time, and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Those were all Derek Riggs, and that was really the zenith of their popularity and power. So people like in
For
my era
sure.
that grew up are the ones who are going to identify with that style.
For sure. I mean, Iron Maiden, like, not to discredit their great music and the lead singer and the lyrics and everything about Iron Maiden, but if you didn't have that those album covers and that mascot, like Iron Maiden could have just gone the way of all the other metal bands around that time and just kind of faded away. Um, that branding is so important, and like I should look into the full story about what happened with Iron Maiden and Derek Riggs, but I thought they were kind of taking advantage of him or something like that, and I hope that's not the case. Um, that happens a lot, unfortunately. You want to see somebody who like basically was responsible, partly responsible for their rise. I hope he got compensated very well. I have no idea. Um, but anyway, to answer your question, so I think the approach that Zombie Yeti took was perfect, and I'll kind of circle back to that. But um, when I am asked to work with existing IPs, sometimes it's my job to make it look exactly like that IP and that product. And that's usually like when I'm working with for a logo design for a brand or like designing a mascot or something like that. But when you're doing something like a pinball machine, to me, it's like um, you're reinterpreting this existing property into a totally new media. So I love what Jeremy did with Iron Maiden because yes, they look like Derek Riggs Eddies, but it's so clearly Jeremy's style. It looks like he took them and said, what if they made like a Saturday morning cartoon about Iron Maiden, you know? And I think that is so perfect. It's funny that I'm like it's almost like I'm defending. I mean, Jeremy doesn't need to be defended. What I'm saying is he that's like the perfect approach because you're taking something that is kind of already perfect. You can't make it better, so instead make it different. You know, take a uh different spin on it. And since a pinball machine essentially it is a game, it is a toy. So you need to make it more fun. And I think that's what he did on Iron Maiden. Like it doesn't look too dark and depressing. There's just so much activity going on, and anyway, so that's how I would at least that's how I would tell myself that I would approach these things. Is like how can I take these characters that everybody loves, but make them look like they all fit in a newer version of that story. So, and I keep saying like, what if I was designing a Saturday morning cartoon of blank? You know, that so that's how I would approach it. basically. And
Nice.
that's also a limitation of my style is that I don't do like photorealistic paintings. A lot of the stuff that you see on like movie posters or movie related themes are usually just photos that people paint over. So you achieve this like exact photorealistic representation, and that's just not, I don't know how to do that, and I don't think I would ever want to do that. Um, but that means that I can't really draw something to look exactly like you remember it. And sometimes that's, I think, what people do want. Those are usually the people making negative comments, is at the end of the day, they kind of just wanted the character to look exactly like the character that they remembered growing up. And, I don't know. That sounds boring to me.
It's funny that you say that. So like one of my favorite art packages is the Jaws that Michael Bernard did, and I like the
Yeah.
premium. But it's funny because like it hit like the different versions kind of hit on what you're talking about, right? Like the premium was a fresh take on the license from the perspective of like more of an artistic take, right? But then the LE was like straight up the movie poster because it
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
it wanted to honor that photorealistic, like, and granted, I know like licensors have a lot more sway in what they want and stuff like that. And so I know I'm kind of done, like maybe discrediting, I don't know. But I just think that it's funny because like you could tell that there's two separate different types of groups because there's some that definitely want that photorealistic, like a Christopher Franchi, and then there's someone that wants more of an artistic take like yours. It all comes back to subjective, right? Like I I think I think people need to stop looking at it. This isn't fine art, right? Like we're not going to the museum and all this stuff. Like you don't need to be. My uncle has put it this way, and he equated it to movies. You can enjoy movies one of two ways, right? Like you can either go sit down and turn your brain off for an hour and a half to 2 hours and just eat popcorn, enjoy the movie, or it can be like fine dining. You're going to sit down, you have to have your forks and your spoons and everything in the right place, and you're going to have the courses in a certain way with the stuff to cleanse your palate and whatnot. If you enjoy it more from the perspective like this is something I can turn off my brain and just enjoy, I think for all pinball, where this isn't like a fine dining experience, you're just going to enjoy it all the way around. I think everyone does a great job that comes to this table, right? There's been some amazing artists that have joined pinball, including yourself, Brian, that has done stuff that I've never seen. And it's a great fresh take because really before the 90s, like there wasn't much alternate. You were getting the same stuff because back in the 50s and 60s was a commercial product, so they had a very fit criteria of what they should have to draw more eyes to that product, which you're still doing that with that nowadays, but you get more freedom and flexibility and these alternate back glasses and stuff like that where you wouldn't get that back in the 90s. I mean the shadows over in my corner and it's like it's rough. Like the
Yeah.
glass is rough, but we live in a world now where there's like three different alternate back glasses that all look fantastic, and if you're into nudity, there's probably a nudity one for you as well. So
Yeah. I do get asked to make a lot of nudity back glasses. I never really got around to it. Uh, but yeah, what you were saying about the IP too, like sort of, I'm really jealous of those guys who got to work in the time of like of Attack from Mars and Whitewater and stuff, where almost every game was an original IP. They were like, they had the opportunity to make their own story. And some of those games were obvious riffs on things that were already going on, like Attack from Mars. Um, but that doesn't really exist anymore because all the pinball games coming out, not all, but most, are
Most, yeah.
all like existing IP. So now, now you have to get approval from the person whose whole job is to make sure that everything looks exactly like this. And even if they're not strict, you're just sort of you have way less freedom than if you can just make up a new character and make up a new story. Um, it's also easier too because there's nothing to compare it to. So you can make Rudy, and they're not, they're there aren't as many people like, well, hey, why didn't you make it look more like this? I don't know. Maybe they existed back then too, but they didn't have a way to express it. Um, but anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying that I would love to work on like an original IP, um, but there's not in pinball, but there's not that many opportunities out there, unfortunately, because most of the games that come out with an original IP have struggled. They really haven't gone very far. Um,
It's hard because in nowadays a lot of things come into home environments, and so
yeah,
I'm very lucky in that I do have the CGCs over my shoulder, and I actually have Attack from Mars currently in storage, but they almost became kind of a brand unto themselves, and so it's almost like they are licensed themes at this point. But
yeah,
if I'm going to be buying a game, like for example, I would more likely spend a lot of money on a game called Lord of the Rings than I would to have gnomes, goblins, and elves. Like
sure.
because
I totally get it.
there's a storyline that I connect to. And actually, Josh, I will actually push back a little bit on one thing, because when you were talking about like a comic book style, in many ways, seeing that type of style, it feels like it's a more accessible style. But I think that's in the challenge of a great artist who's able to do something like a comic book artist style and being able to make it accessible, because it's a little harder to um, make it accessible but also very artistic. I mean, the artists, I mean, I've talked about this before, that when I was growing up, there was Wills Portasio, there was Jim Lee, there was Todd McFarlane, like all those guys, they took an
Love Todd.
existing comic book form, and Rob Liefeld, who did Deadpool, they took an existing form and made it so different, because their approach was a new take on a very accessible thing that made them very distinct. A lot of these type of artists, like the commercial artist type things, they're surprisingly challenging, especially with pinball, is to make it more accessible, but also it's so challenging to get all of the themes right and the play field and everything like that. So I think we automatically assume, because it's more of a comic book style, that it's easier. I don't believe that that's exactly it.
Well, if Rob Liefeld
I
can do art, then anyone can do
yeah,
art.
Okay, he can't draw feet. We know that.
Or chess
yeah,
on perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that because it is more it is more difficult to draw a character, draw a face that is supposed to look like the guy, but to then also uh give some kind of style to it, some kind of different look. Um, it would be easier to just copy it exactly. I don't know. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah, I think just the word comic book style, you're right. It has been cheapened a little bit because for a long time comic books were kind of seen as like a lower art form, you know. Um, not so much anymore. Now with every single movie that comes out is a comic book movie, but uh, but yeah, I've
Well, but
I've never found it. I've understood that it can actually take longer than like a painting, for example. Um, Especially because most comic book pages are made by three people. It's the penciler, inker, and then a colorist. Um, so
Well,
so anyway,
if you remember the movie 300, if you're not
yeah,
familiar with it, that's actually it's a Frank Miller who did The Dark Knight Returns, and
yeah, it's a great book.
if you look at his book, it's actually like they took a lot of that exact imagery, like the shots in the movie, they took from his comic book art, and he definitely took it into more adult themes and made it a little bit less campy than what we were kind of used to with, it's kind of like when you think of the old Batman 66 type, that's tongue in cheek. It's supposed to be lighthearted. It's supposed to be whimsical. Frank Miller took it to more of, kind of an adult theme. And the way that art is, it's really impressive. I still have the book that I bought 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's so great. I love his stuff. I have some of it on the shelf here. Him and H.R. Giger, everybody says Giger when you ask who their influences are, but him and Frank Miller, and Todd McFarlane,
Hmm.
probably my biggest influences back then, and still, really.
Yeah, it was funny because
Oh,
Todd McFarlane did buy the back in the home run derby race. He actually bought the Barry Bonds 73rd one. I think he paid like $10 million for it.
what?
Yeah, no, it's crazy, right? Yeah, it's kind of fun, but
That's crazy.
I wish I had $10 million. But hey, if I had a baseball, I'd sell it for $10 million.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I think I'd buy 10 million baseball cards
That would be
Well,
fun.
instead of just
Brian,
one.
well, Brian, we appreciate you coming on. We've kind of went over an hour now, and if you've got some more projects coming out, and we can't wait to see what you're working on. I know that you've got a lot you've got to keep under the hood. Is there anything I know you talked about you've got your Circus Voltaire coming to Expo. Is there anything else we might see at Expo from you?
Yes. So I'm making some alternate Williams aprons, like magnetic aprons that cover up the aprons. I have Monster Bash and Medieval Madness so far. I hope to have two more. I'm gonna have a topper. I'm working with one of the topper companies, so that'll either be available or hopefully at the very least we'll have like a prototype to show. I'm really proud of that. It's got like lots of mechanics and cool stuff going on. Um, then, yeah, Circus Voltaire Backglass. I had the Black Rose, which I did release earlier in the year, but I didn't have that last expo. Um, what else? I'll have a bunch of I have tons of new artwork, just fan art and art prints. Um, Hopefully I won't have any of these Offspring posters because they'll all sell out, but if I don't, I'll have those. Um, Other than that, no, I think that's about it.
Awesome. Well, if someone wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to get a hold of you, Brian?
My website, flylanddesigns.com. You can just, my email is right there, or you can fill out the contact form. And if you have requests on like alternate pinball artwork you want me to tackle next, like I keep track of all that. So please keep those coming.
Awesome. If you want to get a hold of us, we are Loser Kid Pinball Podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on all the socials on Facebook, Instagram, X at Loser Kid Pinball, especially here on YouTube. If you like this content, please subscribe and hit a like button and leave a comment below. Scott, give us our final words.
You know what? Get ready for Expo and go and check out our t-shirts, the Loser Kid Funhouse t-shirts on Silver Ball Swag. So I'm planning on coming to Expo, so we'll see you there.